Welcome to Quantum RX, the podcast that teaches you how to move beyond stuck emotions and trauma for mind, body, and spirit healing. I'm your host, Dr. Stephanie Davis. So, in the past 2 weeks, we have covered the first two stages of what I call the transformation and the healing journey. Because, like I said on the very first episode 2 weeks ago, that this we move. You kind of move from like physical body and pain to more mental, emotional. And then this last stage would be more akin to the spiritual. I know that like we've all seen that person that just has that ethereal quality to them. They just kind of feel like they're flowing through life and everything, all of the good things are happening for them. We have all met that person who just, it seemed life seems easy for them. And the truth is, there probably is something to that because some of those people who I've met, for some people, that's the persona that they portray, and it's not necessarily the truth behind the scenes. But then you meet these people who like embody this. Every fiber of their person embodies this, and we're going to get into that today, what that looks like and why. Because there is very much something I talk about in the intro. I say mind, body, and spirit healing. The first stage of healing is the body. The second stage of healing is the mind. And the third stage of healing is the spirit or the spiritual. And so today we are going to cover, it's going to be a little bit different, first of all, than some of the other ones. It's going to be a little bit shorter because there isn't quite as much, I'd say, backstory to talk about because we've moved through the three stages. But what we're going to focus on today is the characteristics of this kind of peace, knowing, and expansion stage, this spiritual stage, if you will, and ways you can deepen this experience and growth. If you're curious as to if you have any stored emotions or trauma that might be causing your illness, preventing you from achieving your goals, or even just showing up as the best, most authentic version of yourself, I invite you to take my free stored emotions and trauma quiz. You'll find that link in the show notes. So let's dive in. We talked about moving from kind of body to mind, now to spirit on the healing journey. And in the last episode, we talked about how that kind of ebbs and flows. And you might have moments where you kind of feel like you're retreating and going back to where you were, maybe not all the way, but as you are aware and you know you need to deal with some leftover traumas or pieces, like I've talked about before, your trauma, I always like to think about it as kind of an onion and there are layers to it. You may have gotten to the outer 6 layers, but maybe there's still that core that's there that you haven't quite hit yet. And I know I personally have experienced that too. That was basically 2024 for me, was hitting on those cores and those really important deep places where trauma can still be stored, even if it's just a little fragment of the hologram that is holding your trauma stored in your body. That little piece is just as important as the big picture and all of the layers that you've dealt with. And so those will show up, as I said before, as triggers, and or they'll show up as triggers, or sometimes you just get a download and a knowing. And I feel like when you're in this state, when you're in this stage, those downloads and knowing come to you pretty easily. You could say that's from the divine. It's, God, the universe, whatever, where you're getting this knowing, but it's like that interaction that your essence and your energy has with the quantum field. That is a lot of what we're talking about. And I just also want to give you guys a little nugget in that I'm going to start breaking this down for you too. Like I said, I'm going to have some experts coming on that are going to be explaining some really amazing things, but I'm also going to explain to you the science, where I had mentioned we're going to be talking about the psychoneuroimmunology, the kind of biochemical aspect of trauma, but we're also going to be talking about the physics, the quantum aspect of it too, because I really want people to understand that this is all science. It's rooted in science. And it's like, I always like to say, I like to bridge the science and the woo because it's all real and it's all valid. Because if you follow just the science or you follow just the woo, I have found that you can get led astray in those moments. So it's it's good to have knowledge and understanding of all of it. So I think that's why people who get that, they resonate with what I do. So that's something that I wanted to make sure that we talk about. But when you're in this stage, it is much, much less. You're beyond the place where you're focused on symptoms and how your physical body is feeling because you're largely feeling pretty darn good. And then you've also gotten to where the emotional baggage and the emotional trauma is not as big of a thing. So now you're more in this place of, I've healed so many things. This is what's happening. And when that happens, you are in the space, and this place is characterized by peace and calm and unknowingness. I know when I did my episode with one of my patients, Emily, I'm actually going to be sharing a little bit more of her story in this episode, but we talked about that. We talked about like that peace and knowing. And that's why I decided to kind of bring this back up in this episode. She's going to be the story that I tell. But when you get to that place where even if things are not good, like when life starts throwing some challenges at you, you have the peace in knowing that everything's going to be okay, regardless of all the turmoil. I mean, truthfully, that's how I feel right now. I know the state of at least the United States, there's a lot going on and it's hard. It's not easy. And there's every time I talk to a person or a patient, they're somehow being affected by this kind of the political climate and the turmoil that's going on right now. And I know in the past, I would have taken that very, very personally to heart, like even going so far as to allowing their tragedy to kind of become mine. So, like now, I've got compassion and I empathize, but I don't take it on myself. But I also no, I just know there's gonna be something better coming through, even if we can't see it right now, because it's really, really hard to see that there's gonna be good that comes from this, but there will be. There's just this knowing that everything will be okay, and that means that I'm not getting emotionally involved in all this stuff. I do it by design. I don't tend to pay attention to like the media and I don't watch the news. I haven't watched the news in probably 15 or more years. And I also when these subjects are coming up, I kind of put up an energetic boundary. Like I will hold this space for people who want to have respectful conversations, but I also put up an energetic boundary. Like if you're feeling this and you're owning it and you're trying to kind of project it out into the world, I'm not taking that on. And that's where when you get into this place of kind of the spiritual side of healing, you don't get caught up in all of the stuff that's going on nearly as easily. I would say if you were out in public and you were walking around and you were in a lot of like public spaces with a lot of people, energetically, you might still take some on, but you might have a thought that seems very uncharacteristic of this version of you or this new identity of you. You'll be like, well, that doesn't sound like me. And you literally can reject that thought and get it out of your mind so it doesn't go into your subconscious. There's lots of ways to address this, but it's it because we are inherently we're always going to be affected by other people's energy, especially if there's a lot of people in a small area. But you are in control, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more. Let's go back to Emily. I want to talk about her because you heard her story. I can't remember off the top of my episode or off of my head what episode that was. But yeah, she's one of my patients. Hers was like thriving, kind of as a stay-at-home mom. We talked about her journey. She's an incredible human being, but my path with her is we had done lots of functional medicine together. She came to me originally, had some gut and hormone issues. We did those. She like after she had her first baby, now she's had four. So we've walked this journey together. And It's been awesome to watch because she had gotten to a place where she knew she couldn't rebound like physically and emotionally as she had in the past. And she knew she had to address some of her trauma. And specifically for her, it was a lot of top of mind. The first things she wanted to address were health related traumas, specifically like medical traumas. And so she did my original program that I had, the 12-week program, and in that we did about 6 sessions of HMT, and I can't even tell you, there was such a dramatic change from point A to point B, week 1 to week 12 that I can't even tell you. It was a really, really dramatic transformation. So she went from what I would have called, she was somewhat pain and symptom focused, but she did that in 12 weeks. She went from that to the next stage, which is, being cleared out and more aligned. And what we had talked about last week on the podcast, synchronicities and awarenesses were, her awareness was expanded. She was having like little synchronicities and things started flowing for her easily. And then she had her another baby, and she realized that brought up some specific traumas she wanted to deal with. Again, there were some like they were largely health related on the family side, but also some of her experiences, like in the birth process. She had had some things that didn't go as well as she wanted. And so she wanted to work on that stuff. And she knew that there were some other things she knew deep inside, and that's something that comes with this work. In the second and third stages, there's unknowing. There's that knowing that everything's going to be all right. But then you also have this knowing of things when you know you need to address something. So she had that nagging knowing inside of her. And so she knew there were a few other things she needed to address. And so we worked on all of that. And she got to this place after we had done, she basically was doing monthly sessions then of HMT. And she got to this place where she's like, I have so much peace and I have this knowing. And again, same with me, like same thing that a lot of the people I work with experience. She had like a deeper connection to God and a deeper connection to just the interconnected nature of all of us. And I feel like that really characterizes this stage of the healing process because it's more you're on the spiritual journey instead of being on the physical or the mental journey anymore. That's not to say that you can't go back into those moments, but like you've moved to a different place of being. You're in a different place of being. This like we talk about every time we heal and we wake up, it's a new identity, and this new identity and this new place of being. It allows just for so much more to come in. Like I had said before, there's the peace, the calm, the knowing, feeling just very heart centered. I mean, I wake up every day and by and large, unless I'm not feeling well from a virus or something like that my kiddos have passed on, I largely wake up feeling very grateful. That is literally the first thing that comes to my mind when I wake up in the morning is like gratitude. Gratitude for my health, my life, all of the things, different types of gratitude come in, but that's how I feel, and leading very heart centered. It's a very different place. And earlier, I think maybe on the first episode 2 weeks ago, I had touched on just leading and living with a loving heart. It's very different to live in this world with a loving heart than to be frustrated or engaged in all of just the chaos of the world. And an episode, I want to say it was 5. Yes, episode 5, I interviewed my friend Jonathan Carroll, and we talked about that. We talked about the different stages of healing and like the space that you're in. And that I also wanted to talk about because once you get to this place, yes, we can do HMT, and that I have explained what that process looks like. That's holographic manipulation therapy for those of you who have not heard that before, but that's one of my main emotional and trauma work modalities that I use, among other things like heart math, and we do breath work. There's other things that we do, but that's by and large one of my main modalities. And you can keep doing that because once you get deeper and you clear out all the trauma, there is this place. It's very akin to what I would say, like the work of Joe Dispenza, and a lot of HMT is rooted in his work and the groundwork that he has laid. But it's different because he requires you to sit there and do deep meditations. And most of us don't have the time to do those daily deep meditations. And so I feel like what we do in HMT is kind of a workaround because the first aspect, I mean, you can use it for trauma, but you can also use it to amplify things, bring more of certain things into your life. You can talk about, future timelines and like imagining and really embedding into your subconscious your future self. There's a lot that we can do that expands upon this. And that's why I characterize this stage of healing as the spiritual and the expansion, because you can expand on this, the knowing and everything that's happening in your connection with the divine and God in the spiritual realm. That's very much something that is characterized by this stage, but there's different ways to facilitate it. Like I said, I can do it with the HMT work and also different meditative modalities that I've been taught. And like I said, Joe Dispenza has been a big influence on me. But also, you can use things like their psychedelic therapy is becoming a big piece of this picture and helping people facilitate inner work. I'm not opposed to that. What I am opposed is people doing it willy nilly and not doing it in either a ceremonial or a clinical and facilitated manner. There are different ways you can do that. Here in Colorado, they just approved psilocybin and psychedelic based therapies and clinical treatment centers here. So I like that. But I also think it's cool that when people tell me that they went down to Peru or Puerto Rico or Costa Rica and they went to these places and they did some kind of journey. Like you may have heard that episode I was just talking about with Jonathan Carroll, which was season 2, episode 5. He explained his journey. He had originally used ayahuasca and then he went and used, I can't remember the actual extract, but it's a bufo frog. It's from the bufo frog. And he does it in a ceremonial environment and in a controlled environment. And when you do it there, it allows the key to it is allowing you to access a place of consciousness that our conscious minds don't let us go to. Our brains don't inherently let us go to. So when you use different substances like that. And then in the past, one of the very first podcast episodes I did was with my dear friend, Maya She Treat. And let me grab these for you. She's got what she calls her quantum drops. She has the grandmother, the grandfather, and the children. And in that episode, we talked about this. I mean, these are literally just energetically infused water drops, but I have used them. And in that episode, we talked about how transformative they are. When I feel like I need a little something, like if I feel like I'm stuck or I can't get to the place that I'm trying to go to with regard to my own healing journey. Like last week, I took the children drops because I was feeling like I needed some of that energy. And it was funny because later on that day, I had all these kind of downloads, but then I ended up crying and I was like, why am I crying? But, it was something that needed to release. I was not conscious of what needed to be released, but something needed to be released. So there's that. And literally, if you look at the ingredients, I mean, these are drops of water and it's infused with the essence of a plant, different medicinal plants, and it's also infused. She infuses them with, she always calls it the song. There's the song, and they're also infused with like some like minerals or crystals, not actually in it, but the energetic properties of it. She has a whole ceremony that she goes through to create these. And there's different things that you can use to facilitate it. There are a lot of, for instance, like monks who have been meditating for decades, they can access this really easily. That's why some of them, you see like the famous pictures of them sitting in the snow with just like a little cloth on, that they can do that because they have such kind of mind body control, but like that access to the spiritual realm too. They are kind of like the ultimate of having like that knowing, because when you get to this place, there's not much fear in your life anymore. I know some people who say they have none. I would say I oscillate. Sometimes I feel like there's none, but I know deep down there are some little things there. So, but it's not, the fear doesn't control you. It's just there. It's there. I feel like it's a reminder. It helps guide us sometimes. And so it's not something that has control on me over me by any stretch of the imagination. But like when you get to this place, you can do things that help you expand your spirit. And so that was one of the things I wanted to make sure that we talked about, because there's lots of different ways. Breath work, you can do it through breath work too. I've seen and experienced some pretty profound shifts with different types of breath work. And releases, and like holotropic breath work can like definitely give you that enhanced state of mind. There's lots and lots of ways that you can do this, but that's something I wanted people to understand, was that once you get here, there are ways to keep on growing and experiencing this. And I will tell you, do what you're comfortable with. I know some people who were like, I'm never putting like a quote unquote medicinal substance or drug in my body to achieve that. And that's okay, because that's what their choice is and that's what's right for them. But I do know some people who have tried to do the meditative path and do like I'd say therapeutically supported methods. They've had to use things like a ketamine treatment or ketamine treatments or clinician controlled psilocybin, that type of stuff, where that is what allowed them to heal and to process everything and move beyond and get to this place where it breaks down your ego. You move beyond the ego and you move into a place of more, I have to describe it as being loving and heart centered, and meeting people in that space and allowing people to be themselves and speak their truth no matter where they're at on the journey, and not judging them for that, or just being their witnessing them. And if they choose to get supported by you, that's great. If they don't, it's not a big deal. But it is very much a place of expansion and connection in a way that's very different. It's not like physical connection. It's like emotional and spiritual connection. So it's a very different place to be in your life. But what I can say is I feel like I personally am more at the beginning of that. I know that I transitioned more from like what I would call my stage 2 to stage 3 last year at the mid to end of 2024. The journey is evolving. So this year I have some more retreats that I'm going to, because I know that I get a lot of deep work and deep healing and this connectivity and downloads. I get these at a lot of the retreats that I go to. And I mean, this retreat is nothing. There's going to be nothing, like there's no substances. It's just going to be us doing the work and more of the HMT process and meditative capacities. I'm going to a couple of those this year because, like I said, I do get a lot from those. And I feel like my healing and my journey is accelerated to that. So I would also invite you to look for things like that. I know eventually I am going to be offering those types of experiences for people, but not quite yet. I'm waiting for the right time. I've been approached last year and this year about doing them, but I want to wait till the time feels right for me. But I think that is another place for the healing journey. There's so many places for this to occur. Going out in nature, when you feel this way, being out in nature just feels different because you feel connected. You are a creator. You know that inherently you are one with the universe. We are all one and we are all connected. And the more that you get, again, clear out all the baggage and the emotional stuff, the more you have, you can resonate with the universe and God and all of that. And you can bring things in and you can create. You're creating from a place of, I want to say, abundance and happiness and energy. I mean, people could call it manifestation, and that's fine. I just feel like, to me, manifestation has become such a buzzword, but it literally is your thoughts becoming concrete reality. And I have seen that happen in my life time and time again. And the people that I talk to who are like in this stage of the healing journey, I'm going to tie this back to the person that I was talking about at the beginning, that person who, it's not just for show. What you see is what you get in reality. When you see them on social media or you see them in real life, they are that person who, like I said, has that ethereal quality, and it seems like everything just flows for them and everything flows to them and it's easy. What I will say about those people is most of those people have done a lot of work. There's a few blessed people who are born that way, a very, very precious few, but most of those other people have done the work and they're living from a place of love and gratitude and abundance and not scarcity and fear and all of the things that limit us. They are people who do that. And their lives, if you talk to them, they're not like, they're not skating by and things are not just like super easy. They work on this stuff and they're doing the internal work, but everything is coming to them. Things flow for them. There isn't as much disruption and there's not as many, kind of bumps in the road for them as other people. So there are qualities of these people, and I've watched it. I've watched some people I've worked with, like a lot of the people I work with that own their own businesses. I've just watched them take off and skyrocket, like exponential growth after they've cleared out a lot of this type of stuff. And then when all of the good is happening, it encourages you to want to do more in this realm and then also share it with other people. So that's what I wanted to leave you with on this episode because it's not the end of a journey. There's no destination here. It's the continued growth and evolving of you as a person, but moving from that journey from the physical to the spiritual and what can happen there. But it's just one step. You have to take the next step. And if you're encouraged by this or if you have any questions, let me know. Post a note, post a comment or ask a question on the links for the show notes. There are places you can ask. You can go to the website, drstephaniedavis.com. You can ask questions there. You can ask, on the YouTube page, feel free to write comments there because I love hearing from people in that aspect. But yeah, I'd love to hear where you are on this journey. And if you've listened to all three of these episodes, what are your thoughts? How do you feel about this? Do you have any other advice or tips? Or this is a community and we're all growing together. So if you have anything that you'd love to share, I would love to hear that from you.
If you made it this far, I truly appreciate you. Remember, knowledge is just the beginning. Taking action is what truly sparks change. If you're overwhelmed and don't have enough energy to make it through the day, I invite you to book a free 20-minute coaching call with me. It's a no-obligation chat where we can discuss your health goals and how I might be able to help you achieve them. Visit the link in the episode description to book that call. Until next time, keep striving for wellness and remember, you have the power to not just survive, but thrive in motherhood.